We've finally got some actual changes to the meta in COD Mobile due to the recent balance changes. So today we've got our top 10 guns in Season 11, and it's a little bit fresher than usual. We're also taking a slightly different approach. For past top 10 guns lists, it had been very heavily dependent on the competitive meta, but we're kind of tweaking it a little bit more to focus on weapons that are viable for people of all skill level rather than just what works in the competitive setting. Let me know your guys' thoughts and we'll go ahead and hop into it. Obviously, we got to get started with our honorable mentions, and the first of those is the R9. This is one that was previously inside of our top 10 guns list, but very heavily influenced by the fact that it was the most used shotgun in competitive COD Mobile. In reality, this gun requires a very specific play style and doesn't have a whole lot of versatility. So for the average player, it's not something that's going to be super usable until you've got quite a few hours with it and you also get the right map that you want to use it on. With that being said, it does have the best range of any shotgun in the game, and its second shot follow-up does allow for very fast time to kill in that first burst. Following that, we've got the ASM-10, which got a buff this season that now allows it to 2-tap to the head in the first damage phase. This is one that, looking at the stats, I didn't realize how closely it compared to the DRH in a lot of different ways. I think a lot of people just stopped using it whenever the Branson barrel got nerfed, but the base version actually looks very, very solid. And once I get a little bit more time to look at the numbers on this, this may very well make its way into our top 10 next season. Lastly, we got the Switchblade, which received another buff this season to both the extended mag and the extended barrel. It's a really powerful up-close SMG with great 4-tap consistency, with obviously the biggest downside being its damage drop-off at range. Unfortunately, with how powerful our top 5 guns are right now, there's very few situations where this is really going to thrive, but if you get a close range oriented map, it can definitely work. Now, moving in at the 10 spot, we do have easily the #1 sniper in COD Mobile in the Tundra. With the same lethal zones as all the best snipers in the game, on top of the fact that it has better ADS speed, better rate of fire, better mobility, there's not really much reason to not use the Tundra. To be honest, the only reason that it's this high on the list is just because of lack of versatility, as obviously the majority of people are not good enough with a sniper to use it in respawns. This is one that you are primarily going to see in Search and Destroy. But if you do play Search and Destroy, it's probably going to dominate the majority of your lobbies. Coming in at number 9, we got a gun which has gradually moved its way down our top 10 guns list in the Type 19. The Type 19 hasn't really gotten any nerfs that have caused it to fall down. It's mainly just been that other guns have gotten buffed and introduced into the meta that have kind of taken away for a need for the Type 19 to be used. It is a very good all-around gun with good headshot multipliers and upper body multipliers that make it capable of 3-tapping, giving it a quick time to kill. Unfortunately, if you're not getting that 3-shot kill, it doesn't have a very competitive time to kill in the close range, and with it being a bullet speed weapon, it is going to struggle a little bit more in those long-range engagements than some of the alternatives. Naturally, if you've got the mythic version, this is one that's going to be a little bit stronger in those scenarios. The base version not having great iron sights, usually you don't want to have to waste a red dot as well. Coming in at number 8, we've got a combination of the CX9 and the Fennec, really depending on what blueprints you have. Previously, I had simply put the CX9 burst mag in its own spot because of how powerful it is, but because it's a 12-round magazine, it's going to be nearly impossible to get multi-kills without having to reload. And I've seen more and more people recently using the 50-round magazine on the CX9 and actually doing really well with it. In fact, next to the Fennec, there's not a whole lot of downsides outside of slightly slower rate of fire and a little bit lower damage. It's still capable of 4-tapping up close. The 5-tap time to kill is still very quick. It's got a bigger magazine and also has lower recoil. The CX9 overall is way easier to use and has better base irons. It's really only if you have the mythic version that I would recommend using the Fennec. Coming in at number 7, some of you might be surprised to see this just because I haven't had it in our top 10 for the last couple of seasons, but more people have been telling me to try out the MG42, and interestingly enough, there were a number of different games where I used it after struggling with guns in our top 5 and actually did better. The thing that a lot of people don't think about when calculating time to kill is the fact that the average person is not hitting all their shots, and that's what time to kill for the most part of the COD Mobile community is calculated based off. Because the MG42 has a faster rate of fire than the majority of the weapons on this list, it's going to be a lot more forgiving for inaccurate players, myself being one of those. With a lot of different magazine options and potential to increase the rate of fire and thereby decrease the time to kill, the MG42 is a phenomenal long-range option with a base iron sight that's not bad at all. And while being an LMG, it does have a lower mobility. With a proper playstyle, this thing can absolutely dominate. Coming in at number 6, we've got two guns that remain the long-range kings of COD Mobile, and actually, interestingly enough, just got unbanned from the competitive rule set. The SKS, which became very famous in 2022 for its dominance in the World Championships, was promptly banned afterwards, but has now seen an unban banned, which likely indicates that the Type 63 won't be banned either. The biggest reason for the ban is because of how lethal they are in the hands of pro players, with the ability to one-tap to the head anywhere on the map, and also the ability to two-tap from anywhere on the map. Even though the guns are very difficult to use because they have slower rate of fire and are tap-to-fire weapons, they're ridiculously powerful when they're mastered. The main reason that they're not higher on this list is because, number one, it's very difficult to use if you are a thumbs player. In order to use the weapon effectively, you need to be able to tap the shoot button, aim, and also move, which naturally is going to require at least 3 fingers. With that being said, these are 2 incredibly powerful weapons that really not enough people have taken the time to master. Now, moving into our top 5, the next 3 guns to me are really interchangeable depending on your playstyle, your experience level, and the blueprints that you have unlocked. I have the Oden at number 5, but a lot of people can make the argument that this is the 3rd best weapon in the game. Once again, it really depends on who you are. The Oden did receive a couple of nerfs this season, with the Colossus suppressor getting a 10% damage reduction and a strafe reduction to the light stock, which a lot of players use as well. I had already used the monolithic suppressor anyway, as it had received a buff in recent seasons, and neither of the nerfs feel super noticeable gameplay wise. The Oden is the highest damage fully automatic weapon with the ability to 2-tap if you land upper body shots, with the downsides being that it does have a slower rate of fire, meaning if you don't achieve that 2-shot kill, the time to kill is going to be brutally slow, and unlike the Type 63 and the SKS, it does not have the ability to 1-tap to the head. It is also one of those weapons that's a lot more lethal when you have the mythic version, having that built-in red dot giving you a lot more accuracy. There are a couple solid battle pass and other versions of blueprints that make this viable. I've got it at number 5 just because it's the most difficult of the 3 to use. Coming in at number 4, we've got the HVK assault rifle. This is one that's been in our top 5 guns for Lord knows how long. The ability to 2-tap to the head in the first damage phase being one of its big upsides. Its 3-tap time to kill is ridiculously fast, and even if you're only able to achieve a 4-shot, still competitive with other weapons. The gun does lack slightly whenever it comes to ADS speed if you want to be able to maintain maximum accuracy, and does have a smaller magazine for its rate of fire, which is something you need to keep in mind. This is another one of those that if you don't have a good blueprint for it, it's going to be tougher to use, the cartridge crusher being the best option for it right now. Coming in at number 3, we've got the DRH, and a big reason that I've got it ranked this high is because there's so many really good free blueprints for this thing. We got the free legendary Kurahana from last season, we've got the red action DRH, which was just introduced this season, and also the base has really good iron sights as well. There's not really a lot of ways you can go wrong in regards to blueprints. It's got very good 3-tap consistency, solid mobility for an assault rifle. This is just a very solid all-around weapon in a lot of different scenarios, and the only reason that it's not higher than number 3 is because our top 2 guns are pretty broken. Coming in at number 2, we have our previous number 1 weapon in the game, which did receive a couple of different nerfs this season. If any of you have played ranked, you're probably not going to be able to tell that there was a whole lot of a change. The BP-50, while it did receive a nice nerf to the Leroy barrel, is still, in my opinion, easily the best assault rifle in the game. The interesting thing about the changes to the BP-50 is that they were directly to the Leroy barrel, but there were counteractive buffs to the 30-round magazine that completely cancel out those nerfs. So the Leroy now gives a 15% range downside, as well as a 0.1 stomach and leg multiplier. If you throw the 30-round magazine on there, that actually gives a stomach multiplier upside of 0.1, as well as a 15% extra damage range buff. But if I'm being completely honest, this thing still completely fries with the 60-round magazine, and only having 30 rounds on a gun that shoots this fast is pretty difficult to manage. To be honest, I think this is pretty comparable to the CX9 burst mag in regards to the situations where you would actually want to use it. You can definitely make the 30-round magazine work in respawns. It just requires a different play style where you don't try to overshell against multiple engagements. Like I said before, the 60-round definitely still viable, and I would say the 60-round BP-50 probably still better than any other assault rifle in the game. Which brings us to number 1. No surprise to see the newest mythic in COD Mobile in the USS9 reigning supreme at the number 1 spot. Think of this thing as the DRH, but better in every way possible. Outside of the fact that it has bullet speed, there's not really any reason to use the DRH over the USS. It's a guaranteed 3-shot in close range with the same rate of fire as the DRH. It has the ability to 2-tap to the head in both the first and second damage phases. It has better 3-tap consistency in the second damage range, and it's got SMG mobility. On top of the fact that there's a mythic version with a free built-in red dot. And even though the base version doesn't have the best irons, they 100% are still workable. I have gotten gotten absolutely shredded by plenty of players using the base version. Hopefully we can get something that brings this thing back to reality in the next season's balance changes, but I'm not going to hold my breath based on what we've seen for the BP50 over the last few seasons. But that wraps things up for our top 10 guns in COD Mobile. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, drop a like down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one.